RSA offers business-driven security solutions that provide organizations with a unified approach to managing digital risk and designed to effectively detect and respond to advanced attacks, manage user access control, and reduce business risk, fraud, and cybercrime. For a limited time, get mobile multi-factor authentication from RSA Secure ID Access for free to help secure your remote or dynamic workforce long-term. Leverage push notification, biometric, and one-time password authenticators to secure access to your cloud applications, on-premises systems, legacy systems, privileged accounts, and more at no cost for 6 months. For more information, visit securityweekly.com/RSA Security. Are you struggling to reduce your cybersecurity risks and meet compliance mandates? Wishing you could be proactive instead of reactive? You need a solution that integrates cybersecurity together to make it affordable, accessible from anywhere, and simplistic, so you can gain a return on investment on your resources. Cyrisma is your answer. It gives you a single interface to identify sensitive data, vulnerable systems, insecure configurations, track progress, and assign accountability. Visit securityweekly.com/Cyrisma today for a 7-day test drive and impress your leadership. That's Cyrisma, Cyrisma. Did you know that over 63% of cyber breaches are caused by a third-party vendor? CyberGRX is on a mission to modernize third-party cyber risk management. Built on the market's first third-party cyber risk exchange, CyberGRX arms you with fast and accurate data, a proven and innovative approach, so you can make rapid, informed decisions and confidently engage with partners. Learn how partnering with CyberGRX will help you become cyber certain. Visit securityweekly.com/CyberGRX.
And welcome back to Security and Compliance Weekly. We've been talking to Frank Macreery from our sponsor, Aptable. Before we jump back into the conversation, I do have a few announcements. On November 19th, join Amit Barakat, who is the co-founder and CEO of Perimeter 81, as well as our own Paul Asadorian, for a technical deep dive into the problems inherent in legacy VPN technology. Together, they will explore solutions for the modern workforce and how momentum towards perimeterless architecture is helping redefine the future of cybersecurity. Register now by visiting securityweekly.com/perimeter81. Also, would you like to have all your favorite Security Weekly content at your fingertips? Do you want to hear from Sam and Andrea when we have upcoming webcasts and technical training? Have a question for one of our illustrious hosts, or Josh, someone from the Security Weekly team, or wish you could hang out with the Security Weekly crew and community? Subscribe on your favorite podcast catcher, sign up for our mailing list, and join our Discord server to stay in the loop on all things Security Weekly. Where do you start? securityweekly.com/subscribe. All right, let's get back to it.
Little side note: if you would like Jeff Mann to call you on Zoom and say PCI to you multiple times, we can set that up as well.
We should just have something on the loop to do that. On the break, we actually started to get into a little bit of a discussion we wanted to pick up on air because it's interesting, and our own resident lawyer had some legal questions. So John, why don't you take it up here with the question that you were asking Frank?
Okay. Well, while John's waiting.
Here we go. And
we don't mind
by the way,
the crowd background.
I have a 2-year-old that's whining in the background, so apologies in advance. But
I'm used to 30 and 40-year-olds whining, so it's okay. It's refreshing.
Yeah.
It's like being It's like being in a courtroom again.
It really is.
Agnes is probably more mature than some of those 30 or 40-year-olds whining, so it works out well.
That as a lawyer, and as a lawyer who advises companies that are, emerging into, businesses that have, a lot of regulation and requirements, I would think that it would make sense for lawyers to have you as a person that they call regularly, just as their customers get into it, so that they can, and it seems to me it would be a fantastic sort of cross-sale opportunity business-wise that would help you find clients, and it would also help lawyers provide the level of service that they ought to be providing. Thoughts on that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's no coincidence. My co-founder Chaz is a regulatory lawyer. So this company comes from roots in infrastructure, security, and regulatory law. So there's a lot of overlap there. Right now, from a product perspective and a technology perspective, our focus is on building a compliance automation solution that works for more mature organizations. So companies that already have a CISO, companies that have security controls in place and a compliance program, but they're looking to automate that in a way where they can replace manual processes, spreadsheets, with a common system that automates all their compliance. That's where we're starting, and that's where our focus is. If we solve that well, what we'll be able to do is sell that same solution to companies that are getting their foot in the door with compliance. And that's where having really strong relationships with lawyers, with security and compliance consultants can be super beneficial. So the idea is build something that we know can scale because we know it works for the companies that are operating at scale with compliance. And then take that same solution, make it easy enough and accessible enough to any company that is trying to launch their compliance program, and take them from zero to wherever they need to go.
So right now you're targeting mid market, high mid market. Is that right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'd say mid market. The full spectrum, more than 50 to 2,000 employees in B2B mostly.
Right. Before we went to the break, one of the questions that I had for you was, what integrations have you guys done? Like, how far down that path are you?
Yep. So we've got integrations with AWS for that. That's our kind of anchor cloud integration. We've got integrations with GitHub, GitLab for source control, Okta, and Jump Cloud for identity and access management.
SAML, yep.
And we've got Jamf, and also Jump Cloud for device management, and then G Suite for people management. We also have an API that you can use to basically integrate with whatever system that you're using. So you can connect your system using clients you write, Zapier, whatever, to send data to our Comply API. That's also a great solution for customers who don't want to allow our agents to connect to their cloud services. You can basically choose what you send to us and just selectively send that to a pretty simple API to use.
Right. So going deep into the technical part, because I think we're getting ready to do a demo. Dimitri in Discord was asking, for example, the Aptable system will automatically figure out the password policy or account lockout thresholds. How are you guys determining this, and what is within bounds and not within bounds, right? So yeah, I know the easy answer is like log into AD and take a look. Gee, Scott, why didn't I think of that, right? But how are you taking it to the next step? Because a lot of what you have said so far, and D3 Miz on Discord made a great point for this one, it sounds like this really bleeds very easily into project management in managing compliance.
Yeah, absolutely. So I can share my screen and show how this works. Right now, we're not making a specific decision about what an acceptable password complexity policy is, but what we'll do is we check to make sure that you have a minimum password complexity policy enforced in whatever system you're using it, whether it's your MDM provider or AWS, and that you're hitting that across the board. So we're putting some onus on the customer to make those decisions about what an acceptable password policy is right now. And then we're verifying that that's in place. And if it's not, we give them tools to automate the response to that. So I'll show you real quick what this looks like. So what we're seeing here, maybe I can give a little bit of context for what we're looking at here. So this is our view of the controls that are in the GRC. We've also got the other things that you would expect to see in a GRC. We've got a risk management module where you can log your risks, assign owners, track responses over time.
What are the risks linked to? Assets or?
They can link to assets. They can link to controls. So if we go here, we can look. So this is a particular risk. This one doesn't have a control response. It can be linked to tickets, and you can also tie these risks back to assets. So it's assets, controls, and then remediations. Okay. And you can track them over time. You can accept them.
Nice. That's a very flexible risk register. I like that. Too many risk registers are only tied to assets. That drives me nuts. So no, thank you. Good answer.
Yeah. So you've got risks. You've got you can track all of the frameworks that you need to comply with. So we've got a few frameworks here that have a variety of security and privacy controls, and then you can track all of your policies. So the text that you're going to distribute to your team. You can assign out tickets to individual team members automatically when they join to review certain specific policies here. But the thing that joins it all together is the security controls. These form the basis of the policy manual. They are kind of the reason, or sorry, that they're the solutions that you create to respond to all of the risks that you identify. And so the thing that we're doing here that we're trying to differentiate ourselves on is by giving you a way to automatically collect evidence and track issues related to any one of these controls. So what we're looking at here is a system that has just been partially set up. But what we can do is we can go into, say, our device security requirements control. This control has like a specific description. Where we talk about the specific requirements that we care about. We can tie this to all of the frameworks that we need to comply with. So right now, it's ISO, HIPAA, and SOC 2, but you could also include PCI. We provide these mappings for the default applicable controls. We provide these out of the box. So one of the benefits there is if you're already PCI compliant and now you're trying to be SOC 2 compliant, you don't have to figure out the mappings. All you need to do is already be using comply. And we can give you an automatic gap assessment of which of the SOC 2 controls you already have covered and which ones you don't.
Let me ask you a question. I look at your automations, disk encrypted, disk unencrypted, disk encryption unknown. I love that. That says if your disk is encrypted, you're okay. If it's unencrypted or unknown, it needs attention. And then you've got a count on the right. I got to tell you, I really like that. But what I'm not seeing, and what I am seeing down below in manual evidence, it tells me it's from Sophos. That's how we're figuring this out. How am I figuring out that the disk is encrypted or not? Where is it telling me which API, which tool, which whatever it's coming from?
Yeah, that's a great point. So right now, this happens to be coming from our integration with Jamf, and
valid.
So it's not showing that right here. That's actually a really good point, and then probably a valuable thing for us to clarify better. But so all of these
Sorry,
devices.
I didn't mean to log a feature request on a demo. I apologize.
No, totally cool. So the reality is we can support multiple systems. So if we go over to our integrations here, we have integrations with Jamf, but you can also integrate with Jump Cloud. So you can be getting devices from either of these, and you can also have multiple installs. So if you've got a legacy Jamf and then a Jamf Pro setup, you can install both of them and be collecting all of those devices. When you do, those end up getting categorized into the asset inventory, where you can see, this is especially useful if you're using multiple providers, because all of the assets from every single type of cloud service are going to be here in one place. And you can review audit history for all of them. So if I'm to go into, any one of these devices, I can see who has it. This one's not assigned to anyone yet. We can see any issues that are currently associated with this. We can see the evidence that we've collected over time. This one doesn't have any yet. And we can also see any activity, so any changes in the status of this device. And that's true for every single one of these devices. So it's true for people were pulling in from G Suite. Service accounts were pulling in from Okta. Code repos were pulling in from GitHub. Databases were pulling in from RDS on AWS, et cetera.
Okay, don't go anywhere. Don't go anywhere. Stop. Right here, is this data, these changes, which, by the way, absolutely love it, are these coming out of Jira or the ticketing system, or is this integral to Aptable? It's not based around an ISMS?
So these tickets, these are ones that we provide some out-of-the-box recommendations, but you can define any ones that you care about. So this particular ticket,
well, I see Jamf, updated by Jamf. That's the data to put into the ticket. But where is the ticketing system? Is this a Jira ticketing system? Is that you have an integration with them, I believe, if I remember correctly, or where is this hooked up to the ticketing system?
Yeah. So we you can do it in either place. So basically, the ticket gets created here. There's a version that lives in Comply. This one ends up in Comply, but you can also have them be created in Jira. You can have them be sent to Slack. And you can also just simply have the ticket sent via email, and then you can reply to the email with any evidence that you need to attach manually. So those are some of the ways that we help make the manual review process easier.
I appreciate it. I know I'm asking some weird questions. I apologize, but I'm a big fan of ISMSs. I'm a big fan of good ticketing. And so to know that you have not only your own, but you have multiple other ticketing systems you integrate with, that's fascinating.
Yeah, so you can see here, if going into the overall ticket view, we can see all of the tickets that are in Jira. We can just filter down to that. So all of these, the Jira created tickets, those ones you're not going to manage in Comply, but you can still track the progress. And when you look at the overall dashboards here, you can see the status of those tickets. This one there's no particular tickets for. But we can. Here's an interesting one that we have. So our security alerts for Kernel. So we can click through, and there. So we can view the Jira issue, and then there's we can track the status of this. So basically, this is an interesting one where we are connecting to we have an integration with the OSS security mailing list. We have a procedure in our ISMS where we want to review every single security alert that comes through and have an explicit approval for it. This one's a little bit it's a little bit interesting how we set this up. This actually ends up getting linked over. We create one placeholder for the general security alert, and then every new security alert that comes in, we track it on this board. Where there's many that are done. But basically, every time a CVE comes in, we create a Jira ticket for it, and that the status of that Jira ticket is tracked in Comply as well. So if there's any open tickets, we have that tied back in Comply to the security alerts for Kernel, which is itself tied back to this vulnerability management policy. And so we can see the status over time. We can see there's one thing that needs attention. We can see that there's 2 from earlier this month that have been remediated.
So earlier I was asking a question about password policies and password management and password identification. Can you drill into with Aptable and show us password oversight?
Yeah, for sure. So the way that this would get set up is, so if you go into audits, you define a number of automations. So there's some that get turned on out of the box, and then you can choose to make them active or inactive. And so what we've got is, so there's 3 possible outcomes here. There's either adequate password policy, inadequate password policy, or unknown password policy. The way that the way that these events get kind of processed is from tags so we basically will apply a tag. So when we connect to either Jamf or to AWS IAM or to Okta, we will check the password policy that you've defined at the system level. And then we will, for every single user in that system, we will say whether they have an adequate password policy, an inadequate password policy, or an unknown password policy. So if we're to the way where you actually see all of this in play is if you go into the control and you see basically all of these automations outlined here. So basically, like if we detect an inadequate password policy for AWS, we're going to log that as needs attention. We could expand this. We could say that we're going to create an automated ticket right away as soon as we see this. That's
Right.
something that you would configure by clicking in here. So what we don't do is say, okay, is the password 16 characters, and does it contain at least one special character? We're expecting that you're doing that in AWS, but we're verifying that that is in place for every single IAM user.
Now, with this being a compliance tool, there's a way to audit the automation, right?
That's right. In other words, you mean changes to it?
No, like auditing that the automation, number one, it ran. Number two, it was successful, right? Number three,
Valid.
that there's a paper trail. Yeah, valid. The results are valid, and that there's a paper trail somewhere showing that the action actually happened. Right.
Yeah. So
what I'm saying is, are you guys trying to go fire and forget on this, or are you trying to go fire, track, and forget?
No, it's everything in this system is like retain forever. And what we have are events which are immutable. So you can see many of these events here. This is just a stream that's coming in over time. And every single one of these events you can't modify. These are just things that we track. This is what we observed. This is proof that it ran. You can go into these and you can see, what asset did this apply to? You can't edit any of these. And in fact, if you go into the asset, this particular one, you can go to the activity. And again, this activity is going to include, under evidence, it's going to include the set of events that were observed here. And you're not able to change them, but you can see all of them over time.
Right. And now we have an interesting discussion going on in Discord. Aptable, are you guys running clients, right? Or are you making strictly API calls? I mean, it's very simple to say a hybrid approach, but which one are you leaning more towards?
Yeah, so just we're only connecting to API services so that you have full visibility into what we're running. So the idea is when we connect to AWS, we ask you to create an IAM policy that gives us access to just read access to just the systems we need to know about. That's kind of the default. That's the easiest option for connecting to AWS. So for example, what we would do is we would not give you an agent that you need to run on your systems, but if you're using AWS Inspector, we connect to the Inspector API to see what the clients you're running from AWS, what those clients are saying via the Inspector API. We also have the mechanism where you can send any data to us, to our API. What we're not doing is telling you you need to install our agent on your machines. That's the kind of the most intrusive way, and that's not something we're doing currently. So we kind of have the two less intrusive ways where we have a client that accesses only the APIs for these services, and we have the mechanism where we don't connect to anything. You just send us data, the data that you're comfortable telling us.
So much like sending data to a Splunk aggregator.
Yeah, exactly. And so the difference for us is that we're not just the SIM, just the place for kind of monitoring what's going on, but where we are trying to add value is all of the compliance workflows. So basically
what made
tying these? Yeah.
Sorry. What made you guys stick to API mainly and not go agent client based?
Because we think that the agents, what the agent is doing is largely security monitoring, and so there's kind of a couple of reasons here. One is the availability of solutions on the market already for doing agent-based monitoring. And then there's the kind of the special sauce that Aptable brings to the table, which is not in security monitoring per se, but in the compliance automation that's behind that. So what I mean by that is governance workflows, tracking remediation, and handling the kind of tying of evidence and controls back to the risks and the requirements you have, and then ultimately using all that evidence to respond to audit questionnaires and security questionnaires from customers. That's the part where we're trying to solve. And what that means is we have to be careful where we choose to spend our effort on product. And so one of the
Right.
areas that we've chosen not to spend our effort is on building custom agents when there's a lot of things you could be using, like CrowdStrike or AWS Inspector or any number of other agents.
Right. Okay. How difficult is it to plug other pieces of software into what you've got going on? Now, the easy way is to say API, of course, but do you guys allow for other companies to work with you in plugging their systems and what they're finding into Aptable?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so we do work with some cloud vendors who are basically like looking to provide their customers ways to prove that they're using that service effectively. So we'll work with those cloud vendors to take the controls that they want their customers to know about and help automatically collect them in Aptable. The majority of what we do right now is we're building turnkey integrations for customers, and we're the ones writing that code. So it's less common that the vendors are helping, but we're absolutely, like, we have a couple vendors that we're working with on that currently.
Okay, so I have one last question. How many more integrations do you have planned on your roadmap moving forward?
So
they've got a web
that's
page
a great
for that.
question.
Oh, I know,
We
but
do.
I'm asking him. I'm not saying
yeah.
go to the web page, because that's too easy.
So the goal right now, so in Q4, what we're trying to do is really make the most robust integration for AWS. That is like our bread and butter focus. We believe that our other integrations are like provide strong workflows. And so in Q4, it's really getting AWS correct. Then in Q1, it's expanding on that base of having the best set of compliance automation and integrations for AWS, expanding that to the other two major cloud providers, and expanding into the service providers that customers are using outside of infrastructure as a service. So integrating with vulnerability scanning, integrating with intrusion detection services, all of the kind of layers that they might be using third parties for and not the infrastructure providers themselves. What we expect is that by the end of Q2, most of the services that customers would be using, we would have a turnkey integration for, which brings our integration count probably up to closer to 50. Right now, we're around a dozen by the end of Q2. And then expanding the ease of use of the API. So for anything that's not in those 50 services that we integrate with automatically, making it as easy as possible for customers connected.
Any final questions for Frank? Scott, Josh, John?
I could have one other. What do you want us to hear about Aptable that we haven't had a chance to cover?
Just, that our goal here is to build the easiest and most comprehensive compliance automation platform for teams that are building software in the cloud. And so if that's interesting to you, I would love to talk. We're doing a ton of product research currently. One thing that I'll make a plug for is if you don't want to talk to a salesperson and you only want to talk to product managers and engineers, we're giving out gift cards for interviews on how people are running their AWS infrastructure. And so if you're open to that sort of product interview, email me, frank@aptable.com, and we'll take some of your time. We'll give you gift cards in return, and you'll help us build the best possible product we can.
All right, great. Well, I want to thank Frank for joining us today, and of course, thank Aptable for being a sponsor. If you want to learn more about Aptable, you can start by going to securityweekly.com/Aptable. A very intriguing product for a very daunting problem, in my opinion. That's going to wrap us for today. It's November 3rd, so if you haven't already, go out and vote and be an active participant in this thing that we loosely call the United States. Stay secure, stay safe, stay compliant. We're going to keep building bridges and closing the gaps. Until next time. Thank you for joining us.